REZN Burden album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from Chicago-based heavy psych and psychedelic metal band REZN. They've been at it for, quite some time now. And as a fan of the heavier side of psychedelic rock and psychedelic metal, I've thought that REZN stuff was pretty cool for a while. Their 2017 debut, Let It Burn, I thought this thing right off the bat went pretty hard, honestly. It had a lot of depth to it. There were a lot of passages of mystique, some heavier jams, as well as just, some moments of euphoria thrown in. It was a pretty complete package. But if they were already kind of on the right track with their debut, I thought they knocked it out of the water completely with their follow-up. Yeah, the Calm Black Water album, it really did remind me in so many ways of the very visual, in-your-face sludge metal that I was super into in high school. It was heavy, it was emotional, it showed the band really pushing themselves as well, and not only that, I just respected the band for really pushing their ideas here and growing. Their Chaotic Divine album, I thought most of this record was pretty interesting, especially in the first half. The second half, to me, it did pitter off a little bit. It showed the band kind of going into some more dark ambient stuff like the album they put out with Catechism, which was pretty cool, but I felt like it just wasn't coming full circle yet. I felt like it was just a sound that the band hadn't mastered just yet. Now, I did worry that the band was going to go down a more weird and experimental route and maybe, lose my interest a little bit, which they did, honestly, last year, and that's why I didn't talk about last year's Solace on this channel. I mean, it was a very cosmic album, the production was totally out there, but a lot of this record just didn't excite me. With albums in this style, yeah, you have to be a little patient, but on this record, I felt like I had to be a little too patient. Even that Silent Future record they put out last year with Venom Sabathia, just kind of a wallpaper metal album, just on and just not really hitting me at all. However, I will say this, I was pretty excited to hear this record, mostly because the singles leading up to this thing were pretty awesome, very heavy, very visual, really memorable too. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with Indigo, and let me tell you, it is a very strong start. This is one of the best metal tracks I've heard this year. The intensity, the pacing, this is just so sluggish, so drawn out. Not only that, but I am just so incredibly impressed with this atmosphere. It is so unbelievably visual. I mean, just listening to this track is like looking out on like the wasteland from Fallout. And listen, the production, they are definitely onto something with this track because I love how weird and glitchy it gets. Like, this is just the level of experimenting that I want to hear REZN at right now. It is really well put together for an intro. Instinct is just as sluggish, just as pensive, and twice as tortured. And once again, incredibly visual, impressively so. And I will say this might not be REZN's heaviest project at the end of the day, but they make up with it for just how spiritual and mystic this track sounds. Now, this may alienate some, but tracks like this do have a bit of a hook to them, which for this style of music, it's not often, something that's here, but I don't mind it. Personally, I just feel like it doesn't take away from anything on this track. Now, I will say this, we do early on get a few blips on the radar that do concern me for the band's future still, like Descent of Sinuous Corridors. This track just did not need to be here. I mean, this album is masterful as far as an atmosphere goes, with just how dense everything sounds. And then this track comes along. This is barely over a minute, and it sounds like it was put together in half the amount of time. It's just not interesting at all. And Bleak Patterns for a few minutes is where the band completely loses me. I don't really know what happened on this track, but for me, this kind of sounds like old hat. The vocals are lifeless, but not even in a cool, sort of tortured way, and this instrumental just sounds like we've been here before. All of a sudden, it just kind of sounds like REZN have no idea what they want their sound to be, even though earlier on they were doing just fine. Sadly, it's one of the least interesting tracks I've heard from REZN in a while, and it happens to be the longest track here. But honestly, outside of that, I would say that this is REZN's most concise project in a while. Leading up to this thing, I was shocked by how short it is. It's only about 38 minutes, and for modern Doom standards, that's practically an EP. But you know what? Here we are with a pretty concise project from REZN. Collapse was the first single that I heard from this record, and I still love it. It's one of the more mysterious tracks here. I just love the thick veil of mystique on this track. And once again, it's not the heaviest track from the REZN camp, but honestly, it does make up for that with just how meditative it is. Tormented as well, and solo-wise, this is probably my favorite track here. I really do love Soft Prey as well. This track is definitely a sweet spot for me. This, for me, is just the right medium between their more visual and their more tortured side. The gloomy guitars, the harrowed vocals, just how desolate this track sounds. It's awesome. It's just so easy to get lost, and we also get these really weird, sort of gloomy, off-kilter saxophones floating through the background, which are really weird but really well done. Yet somehow it makes this wasteland sound even vaster. And Chasm is just a hell of a track to end this album off. And yeah, by all means, this is the heaviest track here. This riff is beefy. It just has this sense of finality to it, just every last ounce of the band's energy. It's impressive, and vocally, it's one of the most passionate performances on this track, giving it that last little ounce of human touch as well, which I personally love. So yeah, while this is one of the band's shorter records, it's also one of the band's most concise projects. I feel like they've taken the sounds of some of the projects that maybe I didn't enjoy as much that they put out over the last few years, sharpened those sounds off for one of their more complete recording. It's also maybe not their heaviest, but they really do double down with just how visual and tortured and emotional this record is. It's a pretty awesome record from them overall. Maybe not their best, but certainly their most interesting in a while. I'm feeling a strong 7 on this record, but let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.